We're back.
Hey, right.
Just in time for October and some Halloween horror mayhem madness, as I'm calling it.
Very true. We're a little early for October. It's only like an hour away, but we're good with that. That's
It's like
fine.
it's October somewhere.
It's all right.
it's
Out
it's
in
like
the ocean, out in England, it's
it's 5 o'clock.
October.
It's 5 o'clock somewhere. It's October somewhere.
Have a drink.
I will here in a little bit. So, uh, slight extended hiatus, a little bit longer than we had intended. Um, I will say some of that might have been, I guess, the equivalent of I don't know, podcasters writers block. We had
Right.
ideas for this one for episode 10, which should be a big one. Hey, we're 10 episodes in. We've made it that far. But yeah, we had ideas, kicked them around, and then time very, very easily gets away from you. So yeah, here we are. We said, hey, well, let's just come back strong with October. So here we are. The usual: like, share, comment, subscribe. We'll get that out of the way. The housekeeping.
Right. Hey, come here. This is your moment. This is what you wanted. You ready? Say what you want.
Okay. Like and subscribe to the 8-bit Atomic Geeks, or else I'll hunt you down. If I don't come to your house, you need some milk.
All right.
You need some milk.
You need some milk.
So
I'll tell you what, that boy ain't right.
So yeah, like I said, a little bit longer than we had originally intended. But yeah, as we and we had already kind of talked before. We were going to dive into kind of a horror theme for October anyway, so it just made sense that we would just dive straight into this. So we're going to open up tonight with Castlevania. The originator of 8-bit horror. I don't know. I don't have an exact timeline, and I've never looked it up. But I mean, could you make the argument that Castlevania is the original? I wouldn't necessarily say survival horror, but the original horror, scary game
The horror monster fighting
genre.
evil game. I think it would be pretty close. I don't know if Castlevania hit first or did Ghosts and Goblins hit first. We look at Castlevania.
So here we go. Our first bit of digging.
Yeah, first release September 26, 1986.
Okay.
Is when Castlevania hit. So if I were to go now and let's look up Ghosts and Goblins. Ghosts and Goblins.
Right
Two
off.
competing studios. Ooh.
Yeah. Ghosts and Goblins got them.
Yep. By a little over a year. So Ghosts and Goblins actually came out as an arcade release first.
I remember it was an arcade. I remember that much.
Yeah, July 7th, 1985. So Capcom beat Konami to the punch.
Beat them out the gate. So
right,
both with extraordinarily frustrating, agonizing,
difficulty,
maddening insanity of difficulty. Yeah.
You have to say, and you've got to admit, I don't really care who you are, that when it came to developing and coming up with the term NES hard, games like these helped to bring that together and helped to actually build that reputation. And what's funny is if you really think of it and look at it, it came from two major companies: Capcom, Konami,
Two of
Capcom,
the
Mega Man, Ghosts and Goblins, Hard as Balls, Konami, Contra, Castlevania, Hard as Balls.
Metal Gear.
So Metal Gear,
Original Metal Gear
yeah,
was pretty insane.
there was nothing more infuriating on the original Metal Gear than going up a corridor for this pit to open up like that, and you're dead.
That was it. It was just there you go.
Done.
Yeah.
I farted
So-
on you.
So not the original, not the originator, I guess. But definitely set some standards. Established a lot of things that we're familiar with and that have stuck with today. And I was just reviewing, kind of the original opening and looking at some artwork and I've gone back and I've played this one numerous times over the years. Just fantastic art and level design. I mean, you could tell they did their homework from the horror. They did their horror homework. From Frankenstein, from Dracula. They nailed that in an 8-bit form at a time that you're kind of lucky if you had any real setting.
Right.
I guess in some of these games. I mean, for at the time, that was some really detailed backgrounds.
Yeah. Storytelling then wasn't as big as it is now in gaming. And I would say probably a lot of limited room and memory had a lot to do with that. But most of your
Mhm.
story came from the manual itself. And a good number of the instruction manuals were just plagued with horrible translation, and it didn't come over
Oh Lord.
well. And
Oh,
I
I am
know
error.
Zelda, yeah, I am error. Zelda was
I am
notorious
error.
for horrible translation. Final Fantasy IV or Final Fantasy II on the SNES, whichever you want to call it, it's the same game. Horrible translation on its original release run, but that's a whole different
Yeah.
series. It's just an example of that translation issue. So getting the story in the background was harder then than it is now. But you can look at it now and see lots of information, lots of lore, lots of story out and about, especially in the days of the internet, the day and age of the interwebs. Um, and even though Capcom beat us to the punch, or beat Konami to the punch on this horror genre gaming thing, between the two, Ghosts and Goblins and Castlevania, you got to admit, Castlevania is bigger. It's got a lot more to it. It's got a lot more background, got a lot more games. The amount of games released for Castlevania is staggering.
Well, and I think some of that comes to as insane as Castlevania was, it was beatable.
True.
There's some folks, I'm one of them that, whew, Ghost and Goblins was just unforgiving.
I
Right?
can say,
Castlevania was too, but like I at least felt like I could I could inch forward. I could chisel through that just a little bit further, a little bit further. At Ghost and Goblins, I could not make headway on it.
at least you're making a little progress in Castlevania as opposed to getting your ass kicked halfway through level 1 of Ghost and Goblins.
Right, right.
Ghost and
I mean,
Goblins was a huge game, and I'm going to sit here and say I beat it. I will stand on that hill to the day I die. But there are those out there that say you didn't truly beat Ghosts and Goblins until you went through it that second time, and that's when you got the true ending. I'm like, screw that noise. I went through it. I beat it that first time, started it over, and I'm like, I am done. I am not doing that
I went
again.
there. I got the T-shirt. I'm good.
I'm good.
I don't need any more.
So it and Super Ghouls and Ghost on the SNES, I can actually put those notches on my belt. So, yay!
Full disclosure: Super Ghouls and Ghosts. I cheat coded that. It's the only way. I mean, full disclosure, I own it. I did it.
Full disclosure.
Um,
I beat that one at our great aunt's house with Kay,
Yeah.
we would stay with them. We probably spent all day on it, and they just sat there and let me play it and watch me play it, and we got through it.
Yeah.
So beat a lot of games like that actually at their place. So
Well, it goes back to what I've said, before, about when we had time,
mhm.
when the time existed to just sit and grind. And some of that goes back to why I'm not particularly forgiving on difficulty of that nature these days, because I don't have that time, and
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I don't, and there's games, and I'd love to see your work, I'd love to see the game, but anyway, yeah, no, so Castlevania, like I said, it had that art style, and for a time, for the time, it sucked you into a world that was when you added your, that childlike imagination, as we had to do with a lot of those games. It's pretty spooky.
Yeah.
I mean, it really was. I never, when I was little, I had no issue. I could make it to death on a rental weekend, and death was as far as I got when I was a young lad. Uh, it was probably 4, 5, no, maybe almost 6 years ago. I think, um, when I finally actually beat death. It was on the 3DS. I had downloaded it, through the virtual console,
Right.
and kept chiseling, and finally got death's number, and knocked that one out. And then it may have been not from a lack of trying, but just next available time to sit and play. Is probably within 6 months. I got Dracula, but Dracula was a far easier effort
Than death.
than death, and of course now in hindsight, as I've replayed it within the past year, death was this giant beast of impossibility, and then I found the trick, and it's just like,
It's
damn
so
it,
trivial now.
it's so trivial now. So anybody don't know, by God, make sure no matter what, you have holy water. And the moment that son of a bitch spawns, you start chucking it where he comes down. You'll beat him in 5 seconds. It's the easiest thing ever.
Now, it'll only work if you have the Roman numeral 3 power up too.
Yes.
So you got to
Yes.
have that.
I mean, it's
That
a
way you can
perfect
just
storm. It's a perfect storm. I mean, you've got to line it up, because his level's hard as it is, to make it to him with enough health to fight him anyway.
Mhm.
And yeah.
But you
Yeah.
can. You can. He comes on screen and you can stun lock that bastard. He don't have a chance to even move after that, and he's done.
Yeah. Yeah.
You won't get touched one time.
And I actually, when I did that technique, I had the Castlevania collection for Xbox, and I've actually videoed that one and shared that one to my feed, and I still will get random people liking that, like just completely random come across that one because I uploaded it, and I guess it's I think I got it from YouTube. I can't think of the guy's name now, but I got it from there, and I guess a lot of other people hadn't seen that, and so yeah, it still amazes me to this day that I'll get random people liking that, like out of nowhere, like like amazement,
What? 'Cause I will have to say, every Castlevania game that got released afterwards, that's the one fight that is always dreaded the most.
Me too,
Death.
because he was built up so bad, he was this mental block from the first one. I was the same way. I was the exact same way. Anytime death came on screen, I'm like, oh shit.
Oh God, no.
Oh shit, this is gonna be bad. It's gonna be real bad. And honestly, he never was. In my mind, he was never as bad as he was
In the first one.
as the first one. Now, Castlevania 4, I feel like it was a crapshoot with him in Castlevania 4. Sometimes I felt like I could just knock him right out, and then some other times I would just like struggle with him.
Castlevania 4 is a bit tricky. But the thing is, you had the added ability when you took the whip and you whipped it, you could hold the button down and you would hold it out, and then you can just fling it around. Yeah,
The most unrealistic way. And if it touches anything, it destroys. If you just let it dangle and it hits the wall and the wall falls apart and there's
falls
your wall
apart.
meat.
Yeah, Uncle Vlad's wall meat. Go get it. Get your health back.
Yeah.
But you could swing it and it will take care of the sickles flying around. So it was one of those deals. Oh, brother.
But yeah, death was a mental block that always stayed with me.
Hang on. What the thing you said about that thing not moving? In a nutshell, your free child life of living as a bird.
I don't know him, by the way.
Yeah.
He just wandered in the house one day. Someone left the door open. He wandered in. He's like, "Ooh, crackers!" And he starts eating them. He drank all the milk. I don't.
And he threatens people with milk.
He does. He threatens people with milk. It just, The thing is what happened is I didn't like and subscribe one day, and you know how he says he'll come to your house? Well, by God, he did, and he's not left yet.
And there he was.
Make sure
There
you
he
like
was.
and subscribe.
So make sure to like and subscribe, comment, share, all the good stuff.
Or he'll be coming to your house.
But yeah, death remained kind of a mental block for many years. Actually, again though, it was all off of one, and one was the one that I couldn't beat him on, for the longest. But I love. I mean, honestly, I feel like it was a missed opportunity from Universal to come in and talk to Konami,
Right.
because they own the rights to all these, the Universal monsters. Where all the bosses in the first game
came from. And I was actually thinking about on the way home, because I knew this was going to be our topic. And on the way home from work, I was thinking to myself, you know what? All those monsters, the bosses, for the most part, were all Universal Studios monsters.
The classic black and white. The Mummy, Frankenstein, Dracula, obviously.
Right. You had Igor.
You had
the little
Igor.
hunchback that he hopped around with Frankenstein like a little turd. I think he's one of the harder bosses too. The giant bat, I think, was an offshoot creation, or it was just hey, we got to have something simple and easy for the first boss. What do you want to do? Let's do a big bat.
Let's just chuck a giant bat at him.
Let's put a big giant bat in there.
Yeah, it was battling the bat. I mean, I don't know. You could always headcanon that it was Dracula early on.
Right, he's in bat form.
Right, and then
flying around.
And then, Chris, then you go to Medusa, who she's not a Universal, but
a classic monster nonetheless.
Still a classic monster. Frankenstein, Grim Reaper, and then Dracula. But yeah, most of and then of course, you got the Merman.
Yeah, creature from the Black Lagoon.
Black Lagoon in all the any water scenarios. I'm trying to think, are there any others? Without wasting time looking it up. I mean, you got your typical skeletons and stuff like that.
Ghosts.
Right.
Zombies.
But yeah, it's like a missed opportunity. It's like all Universal would have to do is reach out to Konami and be like, hey, give us Belmont, and we got the rest. We'll make this work.
Make it work. And the thing is, of course, and it's funny that there's nothing really came out movie wise or TV wise or show wise for Castlevania until Netflix got a hold of it and
Mm-hmm.
did their Castlevania series around and centered it around Castlevania 3
Yeah.
with Trevor Belmont and Sypha and Alucard. Of course, as the games went, the monsters they used just became more and more and more numerous. At some point, they threw in a Cyclops.
Yep.
They
The
did that.
Minotaur.
Minotaur, this big winged demon, and this other one with a spear that looked like a bird. And
Those guys.
yeah, they usually come as a pair now.
I mean, in a way, they kind of were a pair in 4. I mean, you didn't
True.
fight them together, but they were back to back in that gauntlet.
Yeah, this is very true.
Gosh, so I guess part of that memory lane fun. I'll never of the nature of this podcast show. I'll still always remember. We rented it over the weekend, and we got all the way to that stupid stairwell with the blade that chased you up. And I remember we spent hours just on that section alone.
I hate that section.
Which, honestly, now that I've come back to it later, I can get through that within a few attempts. I'm still not perfect at running it, but like again, it's kind of those mental blocks from when we were kids. I dread it. I dread heading to that section, and I've not really struggled with it
as badly
as bad as we did that weekend. And I remember you get to the top, and then I remember us not having an issue. I've had more issue with that chain of bosses, the gauntlet, later than in my mind. What I remember from that weekend when we did finally beat this, I feel like we didn't one shot them, but I feel like we got through them pretty quick. And
they
now
were
I take
a constant struggle,
right, and I've struggled with those guys the past few. I've had to really slow it down. So I don't know how we managed to, get through that section so quickly. Even death, because I remember in that weekend, like, oh gosh, here's death. Well, we ain't going to get any further now. We'll have to take the game back, and we got through death.
We were younger, our eyesight was better, and we had faster reflexes.
I guess. But yeah, I guess they were together. The gargoyle and I can't think. He does actually
Yeah, they both have names.
the skeleton dude actually does have a name. But yeah, they were still kind of a pair. Of course, I guess what we see them again right out the gate at Symphony of the Night. Would that really be the next time we see them together?
I think so.
There, I will leave a star in there for one of the Genesis or Dracula X or something where that could potentially have that pairing.
Yeah.
But the next time I remember seeing them was in Symphony of the Night. And of course they're like the first boss. And at the time I was like, oh crap, they're bringing these guys out already.
And because Castlevania 4, they were close to the end.
Mm-hmm.
And so you automatically have this mental image that they're going to be hard as shit.
Yeah.
Because they're at the end of the last one, like, well, God, we got these guys first.
Yeah.
What's going to happen after this?
Because I know you've got, like I said, it didn't just go from Castlevania 4 to Symphony of the Night, but that's what I played. I played Castlevania 4, and then I really didn't play anything else until Symphony. And I, it's just maybe I just happened to miss it. I didn't catch them. I don't know. I don't know what the story is. Why that sequence happened that way. But yeah.
Right. All right, here we go. So the bird with the halberd or the spear, his name is Slogra, Slogra.
Okay.
And the winged demon is Gaibon, Gaibon.
Okay.
But I looked up a Symphony of the Night boss list, and I mean, when it comes to Castlevania games, you have to say that probably the gold star of the Castlevania series is Symphony of the Night. That game is just pure gold. And
Yeah,
one of the best, if not the best, Castlevania game, in my opinion, to come out. And the sheer number of bosses in it is just staggering. And of course, they started introducing the other mythical monsters and what have you, other than your universal lineup. Minotaurs, Medusa. You had Beelzebub,
you had the harpies.
the Harpies. You've got Cerberus, Succubus. I know there's Werewolf.
I mean, basically, Symphony set Castlevania, even as we know it to today, outside of a
Yeah.
few outliers. And honestly, that's why I'm so excited that they've wrapped up, I guess, the Castlevania 3 story with Netflix. Because my understanding is we are now heading to Richter next. I think there was a tease, if I'm not mistaken, and so yeah, if we get into Richter, then it's only going to be a matter of time before we probably hop into Symphony. And my thought process, where I'm hoping they're going with this is, you go ahead and do Richter, you do his story, you lead into Symphony, you bring Alucard back in
Mhm.
while it makes sense for Alucard to be around, and you can bring in that voice actor back in, and you kind of chain all that together, and Alucard be that common link, and just go ahead and wrap that up, because then after that, I want to go to Simon, and Simon was the lone warrior, the lone
Yeah.
wolf, so it would make sense to, yeah, let's go ahead and do all this at ties with 3, and Alucard be that common link, before we go to, before we leave him.
And I'll be honest, I'm not too familiar with the timeline, like which Belmonts came when. But I wanted to think, wasn't Simon before Richter?
Um, let's see here.
You know what? I actually want to think Simon was before Trevor. Because if I remember correctly, the reason that the Belmonts actually were able to start having this supernatural magical element to them is because of Sypha and Trevor's union and the kid that they had. Sypha's magic, and then Rick or Trevor's Belmont blood and genes, and being able to wield Vampire Killer came together, and
Okay.
that's how you started getting people like Richter, who is hailed as
So
one of the most powerful Belmonts to live.
it's a little bit dirtier. It's so it begins 1094 AD, with Leon Belmont. Of course, Leon from the PS2. Is it PS2?
I don't recall.
It's from Lament of Innocence. Was the game, but so Leon kicks it off, and then Trevor is actually 1476 AD, and actually in the timeline there's a long gap, so it goes Leon, then Trevor, and then let's see here, Christopher Belmont in 1576.
He was the
And
Game Boy
he's
games.
the Game Boy. And then Simon kicks it off in 1691.
Okay.
And then 1698 with Simon's Quest. And then we get Just Belmont 1748, which is one of the Game Boy Advance games. And then Richter finally comes into play in 1792.
So Trevor was first.
Yeah.
Well,
And then
after Leon.
after Leon, yeah. And in 1797 is Symphony of the Night. And then after that is when it kind of gets. You've got like different eras. I think they might still be technically like loosely, or not necessarily. They still might be a relation somehow of Belmont. But yeah, after that, that's pretty well kind of it. So
I know you then started having the Morrisons come in,
yeah,
and that actually started tying into Bram Stoker, John Morrison, Jonathan Morrison. At one point, even Van Helsing is in the lore somewhere.
So yeah, they do quite a bit, and it's all starting off of an instruction manual being your only real source of information in the game,
right? I mean, they took it, they ran with it. It just grew and grew and grew.
They did. I agree with you. Symphony is still the gold. I think the gold standard. But I do think Symphony overall has the best soundtrack.
Yes.
And that's something. Honestly, the franchise has never faltered with its music.
It's got some of the best music out there. I mean, you can put it with Castlevania and the Final Fantasy series has awesome music.
I would actually. I would say Castlevania is probably the best when it comes to video game music.
I mean, it's got some
I would put it number one. Like if we're talking as a whole, now you've got other series that have some iconic, music or just themes, but I think, if you look game by game, my money is on Castlevania.
Well, you got the theme of Simon. You've got Vampire Killer,
Bloody Tears.
Bloody Tears. Bloody Tears is introduced in Castlevania 2 Simon's Quest.
Yep.
I want to think it was the daytime theme.
Yeah.
That mechanic in Castlevania 2. Oh,
that's rough.
Not even the village was safe.
That is a big one still on my checklist. I was actually working on that in the Castlevania collection, and I was well on my way. I was actually following a guide because you pretty well have to with Simon's Quest. And I've got because I was actually working towards like the best ending. So you've got to do it in a certain amount of time as well. So I was pushing it, and yeah, I never finished that one. I want to. I need to, because that's actually the last of the NES ones I need to finish. I've beat the rest. But yeah, Simon's Quest is that one. That's another, it's another unique one when you look at that era where they did try different things. Simon's Quest is it's kind of like Zelda 2. When you look at, Zelda 2, they totally punted and said, hey,
let's try something different.
Let's do something else.
It deviated from what was, it wasn't really the norm then, because there wasn't a norm. But
right. And, in a lot of ways, I don't fault them for it. And I kind of miss that chance taking that they used to do. And I mean, because there's not a lot of people that love Zelda 2, but I've got a soft spot in my heart for it. It's not my favorite Zelda, but at the time, to me, it was just like, well, this is the next Zelda. There was no bar, there was no standard that we could really get angry that they deviated or whatnot. To me, I was.
Sorry, go ahead.
To me, it was just a kid, and it's like, well, Zelda 1 was this, Zelda 2 is this.
Yeah. There was no ordinary thing. There was no standard that said Zelda games have to be a top-down view.
Right. Yeah. So I appreciate what they did with Zelda 2 and Simon's Quest, as frustrating as Simon's Quest isn't. Because to me, it's not that Simon's Quest is hard. It's just you don't know what to do.
It's rather easy to survive things and fight the enemies. It's,
Yeah.
there's really no difficult mechanics to it other than maybe some platforming, jumping,
Mm-hmm.
making sure you don't fall through a fake block.
But it's like with the guide I'm following, and they're like, oh yeah, go over to this particular building and then go over 4 squares and then kneel. And then that's how you get like this next big item that you need. And it's super helpful to help you on through the game. And it's like, how the hell would I ever know that? I'm just going around to every single block in the game and kneeling.
go get the crystal of Nantucket, go to the lake, stand on the shore, kneel down for 5 seconds, and then a platform will appear.
Yeah. I mean, oh my God. And so much of that unfortunately does have to do with the translation.
Bingo.
That it screwed us over.
We got so screwed on that. In the original Japanese version of Simon's Quest, it actually, the villagers actually told you what to do. And it made sense because, well, it was done originally in Japanese. And so whoever did the translations, they just bent this over good, let me tell you.
Huh. I wonder why this guy's telling him to go stand here and do this. I think he's just going to have this random small chat. I think that makes more sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just going to totally change this dialogue. To be, I'd hate to have been a Nintendo game counselor for Simon's Quest.
I'm pretty sure they had all sorts of statements of process,
things, yeah,
knowledge articles.
I don't know. I mean, have you ever like seen the little documentary? It may have been on YouTube. I don't remember, or may have even just been an article I read. But they talked. They interviewed this guy who used to be a Nintendo game counselor, and they talked all about it. And basically they had kind of like the playbook, and like if somebody discovered something, they wrote it down, and they just had these big playbooks. But as the library grew, they just had to keep adding these games and these tips and these things to it. Because you never knew who would call in, and what they were going to call about.
What game, and then even then, if it once you find out the game, what is it in the game?
Right. So,
and God forbid they call on something like Ninja Gaiden, where how do you make this one jump where it's down here and you got to go over here, and the counselor is not going to be able to well, if you step this way and
pray, kid,
hop twice, and kneel here, he can't do that. It's the kid, you got to get good.
Yeah. There's so many games that it's just like, it's practice. It's just brute,
keep beating your head on the wall,
brute force. Well, over the years, how many games that we have come across that it's just like we keep trying, and then we just have that one run.
Yep, it finally got it.
Finally, just got lucky.
You get it down, and then the next time, instead of taking you 10 times to do it, it takes you 9. And then eventually, now you're doing it in 7 tries, and then in 3, and now you get it every time. It's just practice, doing it over and over.
When we had time to be able to do that.
Yeah. And I guess that could really be said and be true about Castlevania games. If you learned the patterns, if you could predict where it was going.
When there was a pattern.
Yeah, when there was one, that freaking clock tower in Castlevania with all the Medusa heads all over the place. Good Lord.
Oh, my
trying
word.
to figure out their wavy pattern. God forbid you get 2 coming in different directions, and it's one behind the other, and they're doing this.
Yeah.
It's just...
There's, at this point in my life, I don't think there's any more aggravating enemy in Castlevania or any video game than a Medusa head.
I'll agree.
There's
Hate 'em.
nothing worse.
Hate them.
But,
Absolutely hate them.
but yeah, no, kind of popping back to the music. I do feel, I don't know, as I think about it, I think the overall over the years and the Castlevania, I think music, I would be my top video game music. Not necessarily saying theme, but if you look at this franchise as a whole, Final Fantasy's up there, Mega Man's up there.
Yeah.
But I feel like there's a lot of memorable from Castlevania. Like Mega Man, you can really get down to it, and there's a few I remember, but I don't feel like there's as many that are as memorable. And then later on, it's Mega Man never really changed. The formula stayed about the same, and it had great stage music, but I don't know that I would say there's anything quite as memorable as some of what Castlevania cranked out. That created that mood and that atmosphere, and especially with the dark gothic of Symphony of the Night and Castlevania 4. I feel like Castlevania 4 was a good precursor music wise to what we got with Symphony. But if you look at Final Fantasy has some great pieces, but I feel like that's mainly early Final Fantasies.
I'll agree with that.
Because by the time you get to some of the later ones, and honestly, and I apologize, I know I'm going to butcher it, but Nobuo Uematsu.
I'm not going to try.
You know who I mean. Again, I apologize. My Southern, anyway, the gentleman that composed most of the early Final Fantasies, I think when he left, when he was not doing them as much, yeah, they lost something.
They did. You can tell. And I think what really makes Castlevania music maybe stand out a bit more and be more memorable is that you had the same tracks and the same music pieces being reused, re-editioned, remixed, or recycled and put back into the next game in line.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas, while Mega Man had some memorable music, I mean, Metal Man stage, Dr. Wily stage in Mega Man 2, it's memorable, but that's the only place you hear it.
Right.
You only hear that piece on Dr. Wily stage, Mega Man 2. Not 3, 4, 1, 5, 7. No, just 2. And the same for Final Fantasy. Each Final Fantasy had its own battle theme, a boss theme, then what they call a decisive battle, which is a boss more bossier than a boss. And then, of course, your final villain antagonist boss music that was, specific and unique to just that character. But they didn't share those across Final Fantasy games. Final Fantasy 2 had different battle music than 3, which was different from 4, different from 5, 6, 7. Same for the boss.
Yeah.
It's still memorable music, but it wasn't recycled. The thing is what really helps Castlevania stay alive and be more memorable is you got to hear it in just about every Castlevania game.
In multiple games, maybe amped up a little better.
Mm-hmm.
Or, for a big one that comes to mind for me is like Castlevania 4. When you hit that one point in the game, later on, you've got through, you've basically you've cleared the field, you've got to the castle, the proper castle, and Bloody Tears kicks in.
You get chills. The hair literally stands up.
You're like, this is it. It's about to get real.
Oh, it just hit the fan. Defecation has just hit the oscillation. That's what just happened here.
And it's because of that like you said, and it's that familiarity that, if you've played a prior one and you've heard that, you Bloody Tears, it's like this is it. This is it.
Off we go. We made it to the big time, boys.
Well, and that even applied to the Netflix show in season 2 when the trio invade Dracula's castle and Bloody
Yes.
Tears kicks in. And as much as I enjoyed hearing it, and I love that scene, I do wish that version of Bloody Tears had been a little more heavy.
Yeah.
A little more rock,
It was a good remix. And
yeah. And just hearing it, like I knew,
you knew. And here's the thing: is if anyone watching or listening, or even coming back and listening a little bit later, if you're new, 5 years down the road, if this is the first time you're seeing this and you've never heard Bloody Tears, look it up. Castlevania Bloody Tears. And the thing is the first season of the Castlevania series on Netflix, I liked it. I thought it was great. The first episode or two did start a little slow to me, but as it went, it just got more and more interesting, got more better, more better. But my biggest complaint, right, was I wasn't hearing any of the awesome ass music I knew was in Castlevania. All through that first season, none of the music used was from a Castlevania game. And then that final, that very final one, where the three of them walk in, like you said, that music starts,
and you hear it, that slow build up,
yeah,
and it's like, oh shit.
And dun, 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 and it just, and they went, and I was like, oh my god, yes.
Yep.
It was just an awesome scene set to an awesome track. But I'm with you. I do wish it was just a little heavier.
Yeah,
just a little.
Just hit a little bit harder, but
like, finally, Castlevania music in a Castlevania series.
Yeah, and then they never did it again. The remaining 2 seasons, which honestly, I'll admit, I could have done without the 3rd season of the Netflix show.
It wasn't bad. It was a nice twist at the end, I thought.
Yeah.
It just goes to solidify, oh god, it's death.
Oh no, that was the 4th season.
Oh, that was the 4th, was it? I'm getting them all crossed.
Yeah, the 4th didn't bother me because we kind of returned what I felt like was to the castle. I just felt like the 3rd season was really slow.
The 3rd one, that's one where Isaac was in the castle and they had him. He just got there, didn't he?
It had Saint Germain. They had Saint Germain. They had the guys trying to bring back Dracula in that town. They were see, it was so unmemorable. I can't even, that's the one where Isaac was kind of starting to build his army. He had been left from Dracula after Dracula's defeat,
right,
in the 2nd season. It's the one where Carmella and her 2 vampire friends, they were trying to twist, I can't remember his name, the other Forge Master. They were trying to get him under their control to rebuild their army. And then the one vampire, she puts that ring on him and binds him to her, so he starts the Forge Mastering back up again to rebuild their army.
Yeah,
I mean, it was totally a build-up season.
Did it have? It had Legion in it, didn't it? That big ball of humanity that was made of all the people, the corpses.
I don't even remember that, to be honest.
I think it had that in there.
I don't remember. But I didn't care for it. And obviously it shows because I hardly remember that much. Other than a few key points. But no, I did like the 4th season because, I felt like it returned to what I felt like Castlevania was. Honestly, I felt like the heroes had nothing to do in the third season. I feel like the third season was more about putting the chess pieces in place for the bad guys to get beat in the fourth season by the heroes.
The third season was Goko gets a driver's license.
Right, and you're watching Frieza train.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't care for the third season. But yeah. So yeah, as far as Castlevania goes, yeah, obviously it's not the original. We will double check our work. I will. I do not make a claim to be an expert. I love this stuff, but I will Google. I will do some research.
There's just so much about Castlevania that we didn't get over here.
Yeah.
And it's a sad truth, but there's so many games and so many stories that is told in these games that it's rough to piece them all together, especially when they don't come out chronologically. It's almost as bad as trying to put Zelda together chronologically.
I don't know why
That's a
people still
nightmare.
do. Because it's like they keep making them, but they don't necessarily always try and apply them to prior timelines. But then people try and make them fit to prior timelines, and it's just. I mean, I like the connection they did make, between like the first Zelda 1, Zelda 2, Link to the Past, Ocarina, Wind Waker, Twilight Princess. I like that had a pretty good connection, but then I feel
Yeah.
like it all started to crumble.
It went nuts when they said, all right, we've got these 3 different pathings the timeline can go. And here in Ocarina, the hero of time loses, so we go down the dark path. And here he wins and stays an adult or something like that. I don't know. And we go down this path. And here he wins and becomes a kid again. And we go down this path. And I don't recall exactly what.
And here's the one where the hero's defeated. Here's the one where the hero is not defeated. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's all there's to. I
have to look it up every time.
Yeah, I mean it is interesting. Even though they never really acknowledge it. I mean, in the games they're all just pretty well standalone. But yeah, to me it's a nice thing if you want to do that homework and connect it.
Now I can chew the fat with you about World of Warcraft lore all day long.
I forgot more about Warcraft lore.
I don't know. I might have forgotten more about it than you knew because I followed it close for a long time.
Yeah, and you followed longer than I did too because I finally I cut the WoW.
Yeah,
I cut the WoW and I was all about it. But it's like me and Star Wars at one. There's so much I once knew about Star Wars that I forgot, and and I used to know all it back of my hand, and
then you have some big company wanting to come in and say everything you ever knew is now wrong.
No. It still cracks me up to see people. I've seen cosplayers, cosplays like Mara Jade, and like even though she's not canon now, and I'm like, no bullshit. She is still canon. If you want to cosplay as her, by God, she's still fucking canon.
Do it.
Don't let Disney tell you she is not canon. Because obviously this cosplayer likes Mara Jade. I liked Mara Jade. I liked the character. I honestly I like the timeline before Disney screwed it.
Though I will have to admit we could all do without the Uzong Bong.
I will agree to that. I will definitely agree to that. But yeah, no. Disney doesn't get to wave a wand and say, but that's what Disney's about.
Oh boy, it no longer exists.
That is all they are about, and actually, sticking to the Halloween theme, I did end up watching Hocus Pocus 2 tonight.
I haven't yet. I haven't yet. I was going to wait until it was actually October to do that. I'm still going to do it.
I know. It's just there's typical garbage that Disney's doing now that they're wanting to do with everything that they do. I think you probably know what I mean.
Yeah.
And then there's also just,
buddy, I will be happy to see it in a moment. Okay. I will watch it in a moment.
There is also just the mental bullshit gymnastics they pull to make this work, to bring them back, and then like plant seeds to continue to bring them back, and it just does not, absolutely does not have the same feel as the original.
I'm actually going into it expecting it not to have the same feel.
Well, but that's where I'm like, then just don't. And this is where I would argue that, maybe it's okay that if you catch lightning in a bottle once, just be thankful you did, and
Put it on the
leave
shelf and admire it.
Put it on the shelf and admire it, and leave it as one great story, and be done. And then maybe hire somebody else that has a brain and can write, and can actually write the hero's arc. That was another issue I had of this movie is, we fail to have the hero's arc, and instead we just have magical bullshit powers pulled completely out of our ass, out of nowhere. We don't have the hero's arc. Nobody can write that anymore. But just let's leave it on the shelf and come up with new stuff. And I would put this in the same camp that I do like Indiana Jones. You got lucky with 3 amazing movies. They rode off into the sunset. There was no need for a 4th. And everything I'm hearing about the 5th, and knowing Disney and how they are, there is no need for the 5th. Disney's Indiana Jones is a trilogy, period. 4 doesn't exist, and 5 sure as fuck will not exist in this house. I won't go into too much detail, but Hocus Pocus 2 was. I don't even, honestly, in some ways, I don't even feel like the sisters were consistent with how they previously were. Or if, they were at times, don't get me wrong, but then there were other times where it's just like, okay, I feel like you're leaning too heavily on how you acted in one scene in the prior movie, and now you're just kind of repeating yourself, and it's like, do you really just do that all the time?
I don't know. That's not the thing is, Bette Midler and Kathy Najimy is, we know that they can be absolutely fantastic. Sarah Jessica Parker, I don't really know a lot about because I never watched Sex in the City.
I didn't
either. So, my exposure to her is limited really to just Hocus Pocus for the most part. But, Kathy was King of the Hill, the voice of Peggy. Right. And Bette Midler, of course, her music career. Kathy was also in Sister Act.
Mm-hmm.
So, we'll see. I'm still going to plan on watching it. I was going to wait for it to actually be October before I watched it. And my plan is I'm going to be going to the store. I'm going to get myself a metric shit ton of bagel bites. And
shoot, yeah. I need to buy me another big box of 40.
There you go.
Yeah,
my fat ass sat there and eat the whole damn box in one sitting.
It's definitely a modern Disney product.
I was kind of figuring it would be.
And I'll just go back and I'll maintain it should have been left as a single movie. let's stop. Let's just stop. I think it's honestly it's a commentary on Hollywood as a whole. I mean, if you're not gonna come out and Tom Cruise Top Gun Maverick a franchise
Right.
and demonstrate that you absolutely 100% love what came before and respect it and treat it almost exactly as it was before without injecting and changing and all this random bullshit pulled out of your ass, don't. Just don't. And honestly, Top Gun Maverick is an absolute miracle
It
in
was.
current Hollywood standards.
It is an example of lightning striking twice.
Yeah,
It is,
lightning
and
twice.
I think Ghostbusters Afterlife is too.
It is. I'm cautiously optimistic about what's coming next. I hope they didn't lull us into a false sense of security to then do the Hollywood crap with the next one. But Afterlife, in my mind, was lightning striking twice after that.
Yeah.
Technically, the third time. I'm a Ghostbusters 2 fan. I know it has its detractors, but as a kid, I love the full out of it, and I feel like it's still a worthy addition to the franchise.
I do too. I see nothing. I don't even see anything wrong with it.
I don't either. I have never understood the hate. Is it as good as the original? No,
Nah.
but it is.
But it's good.
It is still very, very good. I quote it just as much as I do the original.
Yeah. That echo in the subway, Winston. Hey. Winston. Let's go get the packs.
I cannot wait to finish my pack. I'm hoping to get some time to work on that tomorrow. So I've got to get some paint down. Well, we'll see how it goes. But yeah, it's like I said, it's a Disney product with Hocus Pocus 2, and it's Hollywood in general. I don't know.
Gosh, welcome to the House of Mouse. Yep.
I think old Walt would be rolling over in his grave. Of course, they'd cancel Walt today.
They canceled Walt today. Wow,
they would just
amazing.
They would just cancel
They
him.
probably would, yeah.
If he was still alive, they would just cancel him like they do everything else.
I mean, he had skeletons in his closet, so.
But at the same time, who doesn't?
Doesn't, yeah.
Who doesn't? And it's just we've lost all sense of grace and forgiveness and understanding that people are humans and we're all different. And despite how some individuals want to act, they're just as bad. It's just the other end of the spectrum. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like you're coming at me over this, but yet you do this towards. I don't know.
So don't be throwing stones if you live in a glass house.
Yeah. So
It's a
like
big
I said,
thing.
It's I don't know. There's just some franchise I think I'll headcanon. It's a single movie, and I'll just slap anybody that tries to add others. I'm just waiting for the coming battle with Indy 5 because I already fight hard over Indy 4 not existing and being bullshit. So I can't wait to start fighting over Indy 5 because we all thought Indy 4 was pretty bad. Everything I've read and heard about Indy 5, it's going to be even worse.
Is it going to make you want to crawl into a refrigerator and wait out the nuclear blast?
Yeah, probably. I think that may make more sense than the time travel bullshit that is supposedly coming with Indy 5.
It's bad when the term "jump the shark" and getting in the refrigerator are synonymous with one another now.
Nuke the fridge.
Nuke the fridge.
Nuke the fridge.
That's
is
it.
The term.
Nuke the fridge.
Jump the shark. Nuke the fridge.
Yeah. How about we put the shark in the fridge, nuke it, then jump it?
Yeah. So we've got a little bit off here.
A little bit.
Just a little bit. I mean, it was still sort of, we talked Hocus Pocus.
It's still Halloween themed.
It's still Halloween.
October-y.
It's still Halloween themed. I mean, hey, it is now just rolled over October 1st. So
there it is.
There we go.
I don't have my bagel bites, so.
Oh,
I gotta get those.
Gotta go get those bagel bites, man.
Gotta have my bagel bites.
That's the real winner.
Super
That's the real winner there. Bagel bites.
bagel bites.
That's my camp.
I'd rather have a bagel bite over a Totino's pizza roll any day.
I would too.
What's funny
There's
though is I feel like pepperoni pizza hot pockets aren't all that great.
mm.
They're not. I'd rather have the bagel bites or the.
Well, and at least the bagel bites, I can more accurately gauge and trust that it's not going to disintegrate my tongue with heat
True.
if I don't time it right, because that Totino's pizza bite ejects molten lava and sucks.
Spitting acid.
God,
My
no.
tongue.
I can trust a bagel bite.
It
shows you-
Hot pocket or
It shows you
pizza
what
roll.
it's about. You can see what the bagel bite is about.
Is it still steaming on the top? Don't eat it. Has it stopped steaming on the top?
You can't trust a pizza roll.
Go for it. Of course, with my luck in making pizza rolls, you got to do it in the oven. Bottom line, it's got to be in the oven. Don't put them in the microwave.
No,
They come out a
although
soft, chewy, sloppy mess.
as an alternative, air fryer works pretty good.
I have done those too. But regardless, whether I have it in the air fryer or I put it in the oven, all the filling likes to run out of them in the middle of baking them.
Oh,
So I'm scooping it all up and
getting it all cleaned up.
yeah. Anyway.
So, all right, but yeah. So kick it off. There we go. Castlevania, the month of horror. Any other notables, from the NES era when it comes to horror? Have you ever played Friday the 13th?
I was about to say there's
a
Friday
Nightmare.
the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street.
I've never played either of them, and I'll be honest, because at the time they were out, I was still on the young side.
Yeah, same. And I really wasn't into those franchises at the time either.
I wasn't either. Of course, we couldn't watch them.
Right.
We were. Although I went to elementary school with kids that did.
I did
and
too.
they ate that stuff up. And at the time, it's one of those. It was a weird kind of build up. Like it was almost built up to me, like it was super scary, and it's awful. And and so in a way, I kind of ran from those cartridges because I just assumed, oh, it's Jason.
Ooh.
It's really scary stuff. I can't. No, I'm too chicken. I can't do that.
Can't do that, no.
And as an adult, I've come back and I've finally actually caught some of these because they didn't show that stuff on TV. It's not been until past 10 or so years during like AMC and that they show some of this on TV now.
Yeah.
But when we grew up, they didn't show that at all on anything.
No.
Even in the edited format.
Especially censored or otherwise. They didn't show.
Yeah. So as I've come back to these later and watched them, I was like, this shit ain't scary. This shit's hilarious.
When we went and seen Jason versus Freddy in the theater, it was more of a comedy than it was anything.
And I'll be honest, I love Jason versus Freddy. I had a blast with it because of. But yeah, growing up, like the kids in elementary school and just the way the culture would, I don't know, maybe it was just shielding me. Again, I know at the time I was not the correct age for it, but yeah, to come back later, hilarious, not at all scary.
And here's the thing: is I'm not really a horror movie fan or what do you call them, a psychological thriller fan or anything. I don't enjoy horror movies.
Mm-hmm.
There are people I know and friends of mine that they just absolutely love the dog shit out of horror movies, and it's because they get that high or that adrenaline spike off of being scared or having those jump scares. But the thing is I'm sitting there and I'm watching them, and I don't jump scare. The only thing that makes me jump scare or duck or flinch or anything like that is like a loud noise, like a gunshot or a car backfiring.
Or a dog jumping through a window.
Well, that's a Resident Evil thing, but I mean, like,
A
in
zombie
real
dog
life,
jumping through a
yeah,
window.
zombie dog. But like in real life, like a car backfiring or a loud pop or bang or something like that, that makes me jump and look for a place to duck
Yeah.
or other reasons that I won't go into. But the horror movies don't do that. And they're like, why don't you like them? Are you scared? I'm like, no, the complete opposite. That's nothing for me.
See, for me, I like certain ones. I'm a big Alien guy. Love my Alien franchise. Even though there's only really 2 good movies in the whole damn lot of them, but whatever. Love Alien. But outside of Alien, there's not a whole lot that I'm a big fan of. And there's some stuff I would like to watch, but what gets me is I don't like the jump scare. I like the content, but
Yeah.
I hate that anticipation of waiting for the jump scare. I don't want the jump scare.
So
But it's not the content.
you don't like it when it happens, and me, it doesn't do anything to me when it happens, and it's
Yeah. And I don't like it when it happens, but it's not because I don't like the movie. I just don't like jumping.
don't do that.
If that makes any sense, but so that's where I learned, like with like Friday 13th, for example. I was just like, oh, there's like no real jump scare. The music cues it like every time. Like there's very little to me jump scares of Friday. But it's not the content. It's just that odd anticipation for the jump. But I'm not afraid of the actual stuff. But horror wise, back to the games. I've watched videos of like Friday the 13th and the playthrough of it, and it's just like I was afraid of the box art as a child because I'm watching this game and I'm like, this is just a Nintendo game. Castlevania was scarier than this.
The gameplay is nothing like the box art.
Which I mean, they slapped a digital cutout of the movie poster Jason, I think, onto the NES cover pretty well.
His hockey masked face was on it.
Yeah. Gosh,
I know others that they're probably not. They don't have the same, reputation as Friday the 13th or Nightmare on Elm Street, but I do know they also released things like Fester's Quest, Adam's Family.
I do remember playing it.
And then there was oh crap, I had it. It was right. Oh, Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde.
Yeah, I remember that.
Heard it was a craptastic one though.
There was a lot back then.
That's true. But as far as like others that we got, we didn't get a lot. I mean, Japan on the NES had Kid Dracula.
I played that in the Castlevania collection, and that wasn't. I mean, that was very much. It was like Kirby, but Dracula.
Right. I mean, to me, it does. It reminds me, and it's reminiscent to me of Chip and Dale or DuckTales in Castlevania.
Yeah.
What's funny though is the end boss for Kid Dracula is Galamoth is his name, and he appears in Symphony of the Night as a boss.
Okay.
But he's way different looking.
Oh.
In Symphony of the Night, he appears as this huge gargantuan sized demon that has like this lightning rod thing, and he's shooting lightning at you and putting lightning all over the place. And He's the hardest freaking boss in that game because of how much damage he can do with that lightning. He will mess you up.
Yeah.
And he originated in Kid Dracula as the final boss.
Okay. Well, it's
Uh,
kind of like Carmella is in Simon's Quest. She's if I remember right, she's the face.
yeah, the feminine face.
It's
I
Carmella.
remember. Yeah,
Yep.
'cause I did beat Simon's Quest. I did go through and play it on the Castlevania collection. Actually, every one of the games on there, I went through them.
I still got to get it. I don't think I beat Kid Dracula. I don't think I did. I need to double check my achievements. But yeah,
Oh, wow.
because because I think one day I went down a YouTube rabbit hole of like trying to determine some of the characters from the Netflix Castlevania,
Where they
and
came from.
I was like, let me look up Carmella. I don't remember a Carmella, and then that's when it went into everywhere that
Castlevania 2.
Carmella was or referenced or whatnot.
Castlevania 2. Simon's Quest. Characters. Yep. Go away. Advertisement. Yeah, characters. You had Simon Belmont, Belmondo, Dracula, Grim Reaper, Carmella.
Yep.
And she was the floating face. I'll be danged.
Yeah. I mean, you'd never know it in the Netflix show or vice versa. I mean, but yeah, she did exist there.
One of the mansions that you explore in Castlevania 2 is named Brahm's Mansion. Bram. Mm, 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 mm.
I see where you're going there.
Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Say no more.
I
Say no
think
more.
I get it.
Yeah.
I think I get it.
But that's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, I found that one on a random, like I said, YouTube rabbit hole. Gosh, I can't think of anything else from the NES era. 8-bit horror. We'll definitely, I think, dive into Res Evil in a future episode this month. Maybe we'll just because I know you guys, you and Lazy are not super big on horror.
No.
As a whole. So I know, we may scrape the bottom of the barrel a little bit there for any legit horror. I know, we'll talk Monster Squad.
Which I haven't seen in forever, but I know one thing for sure. Wolfman's got nards.
He does have them. Monster Squad could almost be a Castlevania movie.
It actually could. It's got all the Universal monsters.
Got all the Universal monsters.
Maybe that's what it is. It's a modern day Castlevania.
Yeah, which one of those kids is a Belmont. Unbeknownst to us. We'll hit Monster Squad. We may package several movies in one on that night to kind of cover things at a high level. Maybe, like I said, I know you guys are not. And not that I am either. Honestly, I mean, I couldn't sit here and tell you too much differences between one Freddy movie over another, or one Friday the 13th over another, or another,
Right.
one Halloween over. Honestly, I probably know more about Halloween than I do the Friday the 13th and Nightmare franchises, and that's mainly because I have family that was pretty diehard into Halloween.
We do have a mutual friend who was pretty hot and heavy and diehard in Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah.
But he's kind of disappeared off the face of the planet. So
Yeah, he kind of has. People do.
yeah.
But I would like to discuss Alien. I would like to get into that one. Like I said, we may combine that one. But yeah, if there was ever a horror franchise I'm diehard on, it's definitely Alien. I've lost so many hours on Alien Theories YouTube channel. I can't even count because like that dude covers every little possible rabbit hole of continuity and theory and lore and comics. I mean, you name it.
He dives
Man,
down it.
he dives down it and has a video on it. He's got some good stuff, some really good stuff. But yeah, like I said, I'm still waiting for a good third Alien movie because right now, out of the whole, there's only been two.
That's fair.
um,
You
but
get some milk, fellas.
yeah, so next week, well, I say next week. It will not be next week. We will. I will. Yeah, we'll be off again next week, but we'll pick it back up here, hopefully in 2 weeks. We're going to try and get a little bit back on schedule, and I think it'll help too. You know, we're in a really good time of the year where we can theme stuff out. You know, obviously we do
Right.
horror this month. We could do 2 months of freaking Christmas movies come
Oh,
November.
heavens. Not a
There's
lot of
no-
Thanksgiving movies out there, so we'll have to jump right into Christmas movies.
Yes, we could, and of course, there's not a lot of Christmas video games outside of Home Alone.
Home Alone.
I mean, think about it. Hmm.
I'm drawing a blank. I got nothing.
Home Alone is all I got. Home Alone 1 and 2.
Maybe those will be like some movie months. I don't know.
We could, and that's the thing. You know, I don't see any harm in saying, you know, we're going to crawl down a rabbit hole of just movies for a while. We've got a lot to talk about. We've got some options. You know, I don't necessarily know that we have to stick to a theme either. Of, you know, we talk about one thing one week and we have to lead into the video game the next week. You know, we may just start kind of scattering and being a little bit more random, you know, just whatever comes to mind. You know, maybe 2 weeks of movies, 2 weeks of video games.
Just whatever pops in there.
Yeah. But no, next week we'll be off, and then hopefully we'll be back in 2 weeks, and we will dive into some Halloween horror. We'll definitely talk Monster Squad and Alien, I think.
And maybe by then Lazy will be feeling better.
Yeah.
And he can join us.
Yeah, so with that, that's about all I've got for this episode. Number 10, the big 1-0.
Boop, boop, boop.
My bad.
It happens.
Yeah. So that's all I've got. Yeah. Welcome back if you tuned on in. We apologize for the delay. Anything else you got?
Good to go.
All right. We will see you folks in 2 weeks. And yeah, like, share, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. Catch you later.